Admit it, Danielle, you were laughing. You were laughing.
I almost had to mute my line. That was good.
That's fun, too. I love my job. Okay, Danielle Alvarez, Senior Advisor at the RNC. Worst cover-up in history. Dude was weekend at Bernie's, empty shelled, fallen down, saluting no one, walking off stage, people trying to show him where the podium was. And then we find out everything was signed with an auto pen, and we don't even know if he knew what he was signing. What the hell, girlfriend? Who was running the country?
Clearly no one. That's why we ended up in the absolute disaster that President Trump has had to turn around and fix in order to deliver prosperity. I cannot say this enough. I actually had this conversation with my husband last night. It enrages me. Yeah. Enrages me what happened during Biden's administration. The notion that I would get into, I mean, I'm not someone who typically, gets very upset or yells at a reporter like, we have a job to do to save our country. But screaming matches with the New York Times when they told me, oh, you guys are just pumping out cheap fakes on the campaign. Or with CNN, going to battle with CNN enrages me that they were covering this up and they knew it all along. And now we have Kareem Jean-Pierre saying, oh, I lost access. I'm now registering as an independent because I lost access to the president and what was going on. That's disgusting. It enrages me, and the American people should be deeply offended. It is horrible what Democrats did to this nation.
Well, not only that, but who did it? How come no one wants to report on this? And I think we know the answer to that, but how do we find out? Because, there are always leaks. Everybody leaks, but the Democrats are really good at not leaking. I don't know what it is that they do. I don't know if they threaten people's lives or what they do, but they don't leak stuff. So we're having a hard time finding out what happened here.
Well, they were all complicit. That's the reality of this situation, is that every single Democrat, everyone who works for Joe Biden is complicit in this. Because let's remember what the first question that a White House press secretary asks during their first briefing, the first question they get asked by a reporter, which, by the way, Caroline Leavitt was asked in her first briefing at the White House podium, is, do you have the authority bestowed upon you by the President of the United States that when you are up here talking to us and to the American people, you are speaking on behalf of the President of the United States? And now she has the audacity to put a tell-all book out and say, oh, no, I had lost my privilege to liaise with the president, to talk to the president for months. That is crazy to me.
Yeah, that is crazy. You know who I really think should have to explain this is Jill. I think she should be put on a hot plate and made to tell what she knows.
I mean, they all knew what was going on. They thought they could keep it under wraps. Thank God for President Trump, who exposed Joe Biden during that CNN debate. I mean, we are in a much different place as a country because President Trump is who he is, was able to withstand all of that BS political fire, the lawfare. I mean, everything they tried to throw at him exposed Joe Biden and the Democrats. And now look at what we're accomplishing in the first 5 months of his administration.
It's so exciting. And you know what I love? That he knew he was going to run again. He knew he was going to win, and he had all this stuff laid out and ready to go, so that the day he took office, he could rearrange the stupidity and get us back on track. And I am telling you that even people who hated Trump before are sitting back going, "Dang, things are getting better so fast." And if the big, beautiful bill goes through and people get a bunch of money back in their pockets, that is people who work. Because, those of you who are on the dole getting free stuff, you're going to have to start working, which is so exciting for me. But people are noticing it's getting better. The unemployment rate is down. The number of jobs that are available is up. Manufacturing, everybody's excited about the big, beautiful bill and the tariffs going through to level the playing field. This man is a businessman, and the country needs to be run like one.
I mean, what a novel concept that everything that he promised throughout the campaign, which, by the way, he really started talking about these issues in 2015 after he came down that golden escalator. In some cases, like with tariffs, he's been talking about that since the 80s, that someone would say they're going to do something and they accomplish it. I was in the West Wing talking to a colleague that I worked with on the campaign, and he said to me, Danielle, how exciting that everything we crafted into the GOP platform, which, by the way, was bulleted. I encourage all of your listeners to go check out the GOP platform. It's no longer hundreds of pages. It's succinct bullet points. And he is ticking off that list 100 miles an hour. Everyone's got to keep up with him because here we go. Peace through strength on the world stage. Ceasefire between Israel and Iran. 90 countries coming to the table to negotiate tariffs. Securing the bill. We saw Tom Homan's tweet the other day where he said in the month of June, 6,000 encounters at the southern border and 0 illegal aliens released into the interior of our country. And now, hopefully today, once Hakeem Jeffries stops grandstanding and once the member sitting behind him in the shot stops sleeping, we'll get voting on this big, beautiful bill and get it passed on the president's desk.
So I want to go back to the auto pen. So he was just pressing like a stamp pad onto things. Is that even legal? Can you auto pen something? Does that make it stand? Yeah.
I can't imagine what it is, and I want to describe it for your listeners, who might not understand totally what an auto pen is. I mean, like, there are times where an individual will make a signature, and you can copy that signature using a machine called an auto pen. But you would certainly never use that to sign executive orders or bills or anything of any sort of import when you are the commander-in-chief. And we know he wasn't that now. I mean, we knew he wasn't that when it was happening because our country was going down the tubes as a result of Joe Biden's failures. So there were people who worked for Joe Biden who were taking advantage of his signature as the supposed leader of the free world and decimating our country.
Yeah, and I'm mad about it because I'm just really glad they let him do the debate. I got to cheer him for that. But I'm mad because if this were Donald Trump, if I could talk, the script were flipped, this would be on a 24-hour loop. But no, everybody on the left, they won't shut up about how the riots reflect black communities because Whoopi Goldberg's brain is not functional. And they want to talk about Jasmine Crockett, who clearly doesn't know anything about the War Act or her role in Washington. But she drops F-bombs and she curses and she yells over the top of people and she carries on like a crazy person. And so she's getting all the attention. I'm like, even AOC is embarrassed of her. So, I mean, come on. We've got this chick who thinks her vote should have been asked for to not even declare war. I mean, who does she think she is? She should be wondering about this auto pen and where she could get one, to be honest with you.
In a rare moment of bipartisanship and political unity, both Republicans and Democrats agree that Jasmine Crockett should have zero authority and zero leadership position because we all saw on X that she was, trying to go for some leadership among her party. I believe it was in the Oversight Committee. And even her peers in the Democrat Party said, please, sit down. Please, stop. So, we have very rare moments of bipartisanship and unity, especially with the Democrats who just oppose. That was a very rare moment.
Crazy recognizes crazy. It just does. So they know. But so how do we get to the bottom of the auto pen thing? Because and I want an investigation done, and I hate spending money on investigations, but this one is literally life-changing because he signed a lot of things into rule for America that, thank God, Trump is undoing. But if we get another Democrat in there, they could put these things back, and that's what scares me. We've got to find a way to make an auto pen not usable on an official document.
Well, I think everyone agrees that what took place can never happen again. I'm not sure if or how we get to the bottom of it, But I am encouraged, and I want to focus on one thing that you just said, is that President Trump is undoing all of the devastation, all of the mistakes of the previous administration. And it starts with this big, beautiful bill, which hopefully, we'll be able to pass soon. I'm holding my breath. I don't want to jinx it, right?
Yeah, me too.
Because we heard some back and forth yesterday. But it appears that the speaker is calling a vote because he believes he has the votes. And, thank God for President Trump, who's the deal maker in chief, who's been working the phones there. But this great bill is going to make permanent, right? And that's the key, is making sure that, if the pendulum swings and Democrats regain power, these will make tax cuts permanent. They will not have to vote on tax cuts again. This will make border security permanent. Those are two key things that the president promised the American people on the campaign trail. And I mean, that's really the goal here. But I will say this, and I have said this from day one, good governance on the part of the Republican Party is how we will maintain and possibly expand majorities in the midterm. We received a mandate in November, right? 13 battleground states won. We performed well with minority groups. We won the popular vote. The president won nearly 80 million votes. I mean, the House, the Senate, good governance and the passage of this bill is going to be, and turning this country around, giving those wins to the American people, is going to be how we maintain and possibly expand majorities in the midterms.
Mm-hmm. Even the Supreme Court seems to have fallen off a cliff into the basket of common sense here with some of the stuff that they are voting on, like boys and girls sports and all that kind of crap. But we need to get to the bottom of who is complicit with this auto pen thing. This needs to be an investigation, and I hope that time is spent where somebody gets to the bottom of this. It has to happen, Danielle.
Well, the great thing is that we have wonderful leaders, whether it's Pam Bondi or Kash Patel. I mean, we have great leaders in the law enforcement community in this administration. And so two things can happen at once. We can make sure to get to the bottom, of what happened in the previous administration and who was taking advantage, because very clearly Joe Biden was not capable of running the country. There were individuals who had to know that to be true and were hiding that simple fact. And then the second piece of that was not only hiding the simple fact, but taking advantage of his decline and taking advantage of the American people and the country. And at the same time, as we look into that, we need to make sure to undo those failures and those bad policies, that made inflation skyrocket, that caused turmoil across the global stage, that was, hurting the wages in Americans' pockets, hurting our economy, allowing millions upon millions of illegal immigrants to invade our country. We have to be able to get both of those things done, and I'm very grateful that this president is at the helm.
It's a golden age, and I'm happy to be part of it, and I am excited when I drive around with the Trump hat on the dash of my car and people flip me off, I wave at them with a big MAGA smile. All right. So if people want to learn more about what the RNC is working on and where we're at with the auto pen controversy, well, the lower court judges have finally been told to shut up and sit down. So where do they go to see all this stuff?
I would encourage all of your listeners to go to GOP.com. Remember that the RNC is powered by volunteers, is powered by everyday Americans who help make our country great. So if you have time to either donate monetarily, I encourage you to do so. If you have the ability to volunteer your time, go to GOP.com, get involved. And then there's two accounts that I encourage folks to follow on social media handles. The first, let's give a shout out to the Rapid Response account of the White House. It is at Rapid Response 47. They put fantastic content out. If you want to know what's going on, make sure to follow at Rapid Response 47. And to follow the RNC, you can follow at RNC Research. That's how you can stay involved.
Everybody do it so you know what the truth is that's going on at the White House instead of the constant, they're killing all the Palestinians on ABC. That's all you ever hear. All right. Danielle Alvarez, Senior Advisor, RNC. Worst cover-up in history with this auto pen. We still don't know what's going on. Thank you, Danielle.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.